Good afternoon, coming in to you live from waiting at cross-country practice for a teenager to be done running. So we're in a car, and so today's tip is for a game to play in the car. So when the older kids were younger, we'll have to let you know in a few years how the youngest one will do on it. We used to play a game we referred to as the story game a lot in the car. And the story game was a game where you would take a book or a movie and you would basically try to describe it generically, or describe it in some way as generic as possible, because you're trying to tell it in a way that the other people, you get through the story and the other people maybe aren't able to guess what it is. So the point is, tell a story and the people have to guess what story it is. So for instance, you might do something like, you gotta try not to get in trouble. Let me say, The Little Mermaid. You'd say, there was a girl, a teenager, and she had some challenges getting along with her father, which caused her to do some things that her family didn't really like. But then in the end, everybody lived happily ever after. And we actually used one like that before, and my kids got it pretty quickly. They go, oh yeah, that's totally Little Mermaid. In fact, they probably got it from, there was a teenager who had challenges with their father. So, but either way, that's the point. You go and you try to describe these stories. Maybe Finding Nemo. There's a dad, and he went on a trip to find someone he loved, and along the way he met some surprising friends, and in the end was reunited with the boy that he loved. So anyway, you can see that you're trying to make sure that it's the story, but you're definitely trying to be generic about the story so that you're making it hard. Now, when the kids get a little bit older and better at the game, then you have to add an extra wrinkle. So then we started doing the story game, but it would be from the perspective of people in the story. So, maybe you would do it from the perspective of, let's do The Little Mermaid, of Flounder. Once there's a guy, and he had this friend who, kept getting him into trouble. Well, one day the friend got into so much trouble that he couldn't even follow the friend to where the friend was going. And so he had to work with other people to try and make sure that the friend was okay in this hard situation. But thankfully was, a big part in helping the friend make it to where they needed to go, to rescue them in the end. So that's, probably a bad version of The Little Mermaid from Flounder's perspective. Obviously still pretty generically. But anyway, we've had some really hard ones of those over the years where you do it from totally random character in said movie, that makes it impossible to guess or very challenging to guess. But obviously the more you play, the better your kids get at both coming up with the stories, but also but guessing, and so you've got to be more and more hard. So that's the story game for use on car rides. Again, you genericize the story, a book, a movie, whichever you prefer. Maybe make sure you make it clear before you start the game, that if it's a book or a movie. But then you have the people guess on if they can figure out the generic one, but you're trying to make it so that it represents the story, but not so many details that it adds. Oh, and of course, if you make it through the first go and nobody can guess, then you go back and you add a detail. So, yeah, let's suppose, hey, there's people that and they lived happily ever after. Oh, that's not enough details. Okay, well then, they were a mermaid. Oh, okay, well now I know who it is, right? So obviously that's a little bit extreme, but the point is, if you don't make it through the first time, it's like we made it too hard. Then you can go add detail, and this is especially important when you do it from the random character's perspective. But then you go back and add details to help figure it out. Anyway, that's the story game for your use on car rides this holiday season.